Well, hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dr. Charles Davidson. I am the Assistant Dean for Student Professional Advancement. I used to be the Director of the Pre-Law Institute, and some of you I know in that capacity, but now I have moved to another role, which still allows me to be deeply involved in programs like this. And I want to say a few words just before I introduce President Mason. But I'd like to say that I'm so excited to see you all here in person. It's particularly meaningful to me because this was the last event I attended before the COVID lockdown. We were actually in this room, and then a week later, we were home for another year. So this is strange and wonderful to be back in this room with you all. And I'm so happy to see you all came out in person because even though we've done a lot of events on Zoom, there's nothing like the energy of a room of students who are excited, who are interested, who are motivated, who are ambitious. There's just nothing like it. So I want to say thank you all for showing up and coming today. So I'm going to give you my own personal round of applause for coming. I just love the energy of a room like this. Just a couple thoughts I had before we start the program of the day, because you have a great speaker coming up, and I don't want to take any of his time. But I just want to say one thing, that, I'm so happy you all came, because the fact that you're here today on a Friday tells me so much about each and every one of you. It tells me something that you may not even know about yourself, but it tells you something that I am absolutely sure of. If you are here because you want to go to law school, you will be going to law school. Right? People who come to me for advisement, they sometimes are annoyed with me because I am not the person to get into the weeds of, can I do it, Dr. Davidson? I'm not sure. I don't know if I can make it. I'm not having that conversation with you, because if you want to go and you do the work, you're going to go to law school. It may not be the law school of your choice. It may not be on the timing of your choice, but you will one day find yourself in someone's classroom if that is your goal. I know it, and I don't spend a lot of time debating that with you, right? So I want you to come to our side of the table where we know that you can do it, and I don't want you to sit on the side thinking, can I do it? Because the fact of the matter is you can, and the fact that you're here today tells me a lot about you and your ability to do that. But I will say one thing about coming to events like this, at least for me when in your shoes. Sometimes I would come to these events, and they'd actually make me more nervous than I was before I came in. Because you start hearing about what you need to do, and you start hearing about all the things that have to get done, and you start hearing about the LSAT scores, and you start hearing about things that actually can make you start feeling like, ooh, I'm not really sure I can do this. And the thing about that, I want to speak to that anxiety that you have, is that anxiety partly comes from the fact that you think you have to do it by yourself, and you do not. I'm here to tell you that we are a team of people who are absolutely committed to your success. You are at a college and you are in programs that we are absolutely and 100% committed to you achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. You're not doing this on your own. Not to say that your anxiety isn't real, but just to say that when you do feel that anxiety, just remember you're not out here by yourself. You come and ask somebody who knows how to help you through it. And that is this team that you have here. And I want to say a special word to the PLI team, to Director Broccoli, to Associate Director Gerald Kemp, to Chief of Operations Sarah Shaw, to the wonderful students who work in our office. Listen, we are a team of people who we will walk you through every step of this process. No question is ridiculous to us. If there's anything you want to know, you write to us at pli@jj.cuny.edu, and you will get an answer, you will get an appointment, and you will meet an advisor, and we will walk you through this, okay? So I want to say that, you're very fortunate. When I was going to law school, I sort of did it all on my own. I figured it out at the dining room table, and I wrote the essays, and no one reviewed it, and I don't know how I got recommendations, but, I made it work. You don't have to do that, right? You don't have to do that. We're here to help you. And just to say that it's not just this PLI program. You're at a college full of people who are absolutely committed to your success. I see in the room, I see Vice President Couture Parker, who is doing an amazing job at finding the money and the resources to make things like this happen. Vice President Brian Kerr in the back, who's here making sure that you all are engaged and you all are involved in all the activities this college has to offer. We have a team of people here who are all committed to your success. And so I just want to say in closing, before I introduce you to the person who is most committed to your success, I just want to say, please take advantage of all that's on offer to you here at John Jay. Please remember that we are going to help you succeed. And please remember that I've already told you, so this is a spoiler alert, I'm taking the mystery out of it. You're going to law school. You're going to law school. You're going to law school. So with no further ado, let me introduce your greatest champion, a wonderful president, an even more amazing person, and someone who I just love talking to every time I see her. I want to introduce Carol Mason, the president of John Jay College, who's going to say a few words to you before we begin our program. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. And Markus, you're going to have to put this back up. I'm too short for that thing. Good afternoon. So it is hard to follow Dr. Davidson. Really hard to follow him. And I'm so glad that I'm going before Markus. Because I was like, you know what, I'd be toast. And you know what, I'm okay about that. Because that's what this is all about. So how many of you already know Dr. Davidson? All right. And how many of you know that in addition to being a doctor, he's also a lawyer? Did you all know that? Yeah, some. So the man has more degrees than I have. I remember when I first met him and I thought, you're what? And you do what? And then I found out about Pre-Law Institute, which we affectionately call PLI. And I was just mesmerized by what he has built and accomplished. And I know that Vielka was your predecessor. But what we have here and the fact that the room is full and some people took their plates outside. I hope they came back in for the program. I'm 65. I went to law school before most of y'all were born. I graduated before the professors in the room were born. I graduated from law school in 1982. We did not have PLI when I went to law school. He thinks that he had to do it on his own. We had stone tablets for my for my personal statement. And I have gone to the workshops that they have for you all for personal statements and things, and I'm like, man, I wish I had that, but I'm so glad that you all do. Because what we do here at John Jay at PLI is amazing. Now, I know we're not supposed to have favorite children. So you promise not to tell on me? I know it's being recorded. But still, let's keep it secret. I love this program. I love all my children, but I love this program. Because when Dr. Davidson said, you are going to law school, that wasn't aspirational. That's just a simple statement of fact. You are. If you want to, you are, you will. And we have a track record that proves it. And our speaker is one of those track records of proving it. Paula Anderson, one of our foundation board members, is proving it. Come on, stand up so they can see you. And she's a partner at Sherman & Sterling, one of the biggest law firms in the country. So I know we have some other alums in the room who came through PLI. Can you please stand up so we can see you? I know you're here. All right. We're going to clap anyway because they'll watch it later. So let me tell you why I'm so sure that there's so many around. We are number 8 in the country in sending minority applicants to law school. Did you hear me? Okay, because that's top 10. It gets better. We are number 4th, the largest producer of African American law student applicants. And we are the 10th largest producer of Hispanic law school applicants. Now, I learned a new word when I was here called intersectionality. So some of y'all fit more than one of those categories. And they make us choose. You all taught me that you don't like binary worlds, but everybody thinks these things in 2 shades of colors. I'm not even going to say what the 2 shades of colors are. But we see you, and we celebrate your success, and you are what's going to change the bar in my lifetime. So when I graduated from law school and I went to my law firm, I was the 2nd black woman that had ever been to that law firm in Atlanta. In 1990, I was the first black woman to become a partner at any major law firm in Atlanta. And in 2000, what year was that? I had to back up for 2008, from 2000, takes 4 out of 2000. Anyway, in the 2000s, I was the first black woman to chair no, that was the other one. I was the first black woman first to get on the management committee of any major AmLaw law firm, and I was the first black woman to chair a law firm, chair the management committee. I don't want to be the first anymore. And I'm counting on you all to change that. And so by the time you all come through, none of you should be first anymore. Right, Judge Davidson? So she is a first as well. And I hope you notice the commonality in that last name, Davidson. Yes, she's related to Charles. Are you claiming him? And so I'm going to get her title right, I hope. Forgive me, Judge. But I don't say no to her or to Charles. And she is, and you are the first, aren't you, to have your job? Anyway, she is the Dean of the New York State Judicial Institute, which trains all of our judges. And we are so happy to have DA Darcel Clark here with us. Stand up in your beautiful red. And I know there are many people I haven't recognized, but there's somebody I want to give a special shout out as well, because she is one of the reasons why we have this luncheon, this program. So Tova Friedler, would you please wave your hand, because I won't make you get up. She has been with this program since its inception. And it's supporters like this that make your lives, your futures possible. And there's a young man who is somewhere in this room, and no, he's not. Did he come in yet? So anyway, he came to me for a letter of recommendation for an internship he wants. And I said, you got to build relationships first. And relationships with people in this room and Pre-Law Institute. If you want to be anything in the legal system, you must be part of PLI. So where's Elizabeth Broccoli? So stand up, because she is officially, as of today, she is officially on paper, she already was officially to us, the director of the Pre-Law Institute. And I think it's appropriate that her letter came to me today to sign, so I get to say it. Charles blew the thunder by already introducing her as a director. I know. But the baton has been passed officially. I signed 2 letters. I don't know why they made me sign it twice, but I signed 2. So you are really official today. You'll get them later. And she is phenomenal and built such, one of the things that Charles took seriously, and that we all take seriously here when we say that we no longer want to be the first, that we want to pass the baton, multiple batons, because there are hundreds of you all in this room, and you got to prepare people and give people that experience, and that's what we're doing with you all. So, our speaker of the day, who I could, this is my 4th in-person Law Day luncheon, and we've had some powerful speakers, but none like this, and none who've been an alum, who's been in your shoes and knows what it's like to be you. And as Andrea Clark, who's one of our writers here, she said when I told her, she wasn't even talking about, she knew you were going to be the speaker, but that was not why it came up today. She said, he's all in for our students, and he is. And so, remember Giovanni St. Rose, who took a gap year, not suggesting you all have to take gap years, but she interned with Markus. She got in 6 law schools. She got in Northwestern, GW, Maryland, Howard, American, and Fordham, and she's going to Northwestern. Those are the options that you guys have. When Charles said you are going to law school, this year, through this year, 97 law schools in the past 5 years have accepted our students. That's huge. That's because they know your talent. And so now I'm going to go to introducing the man of the hour. He's phenomenal. And I will tell you that I got to meet him in one of my early meetings in 2017 when I got here in my office. And whenever I see him, he's such a bright and shining light and makes me so excited about the possibilities for all of our students because of what he does and what he continues to do. And he keeps popping up everywhere. I'm having a meeting with the former New Jersey Attorney General, who's doing wonderful things. And he, thanks to Markus, agreed to co-chair our Attorney General's task force, some work that we're doing. Again, comes back to Markus and relationships. And I saw the young man I'm talking about, I'm not going to call him by name. I see you in the room. We know about relationships now, right? They're important, right? Professor Beckett, that's who I want you to make sure you see. Elizabeth Broccoli, would you stand up again? That's who you need to make sure. So if you come to me and ask me for a letter of recommendation, I'm going to make sure you do things right and build relationships and build this network, because that's why we're all here. I'm not here by myself. I'm here because other people believed in me, trusted me, and helped me. And I'm able to do the things that I do here for you all because of relationships. And we want you to have advantage of those relationships that people have spent decades building. So Markus is one of those people. He takes interns all the time. And it's not just about getting people into law school and thinking about law school and thinking about opportunities for our students. He works at Pfizer. He is the vice president and assistant vice counsel for Pfizer. And during the COVID, the height of COVID, because he cared about you all being informed, we had the advantage of having the leadership of Pfizer come talk to us and explain to us what the virus was, what the vaccines were, how they were developed, and developed by people who look like us, who thought about us and thought about our communities and made sure, because he's in the room, that our communities were part of the tests. And so I say all this to say that you want to go to law school. A lot of us think that, you know, you can be a defense counsel, prosecutor, go to a big firm. You can also go in-house and do phenomenal things. And so what Markus is also doing in leading many initiatives at Pfizer, he was a prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office before he went to Pfizer. He was an executive assistant to the New Jersey Attorney General that he has that continued relationship with that benefits us. And you can tell from his fabulous attire that he serves on Pfizer's, he was one of the founding members of it, Pfizer's Attorney General Alliance, Africa Advisory Board. And what he does through that is goes throughout the continent of Africa to help prosecutors, judges, and investigators combat transnational crime. And thinking about things globally and just the power of his presence representing John Jay across the world is phenomenal. And he comes back here all the time, so I'm taking your time. But please join me in a hearty, hearty welcome for Markus Green, our man of the hour, who is going to inspire us and encourage you. And I'm just so happy that he said yes to being our speaker today. Okay, now I'm going to give you the mic.
Okay. Figure this out. This. All right. All right, I think I passed the first test. Can you hear me? All right, great. So good afternoon, everyone. Now, wait a minute now. I'm the son of a Pentecostal preacher. When I say good afternoon, everyone, I expect good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. There we go. There we go. So it is phenomenal to be here. First, again, I want to thank President Carol Mason for her leadership. I mean, I look around John Jay. It looked nothing like this when I was here. There was no pre-law institute. She's just done an amazing job, and always available, so thank you. I want to thank Dr. Davidson for his leadership, just a tremendous job. Again, always available, always willing to discuss new programs, new ideas to help students. Elizabeth Broccoli as well, thank you for your leadership. So I thought about what I was going to say, and I have a rough outline of a conversation, but about 2 months ago, I was at a bar association meeting, and so the moderator of the bar association meeting was getting very frustrated because nobody was keeping time, right? Everybody that was getting up was running over the allotted time, and so he started to talk about his upbringing. He said, look, I was raised half Protestant and half Catholic. And the one thing that my parents instilled in me is to keep time. and then he calls me to come up to speak. So when I get up, I say, look, no disrespect to the Catholics and to the Protestants, I was raised Pentecostal, and we're moved by the Spirit. So I'm going to be guided in many ways by the Spirit. I'm going to talk to you, and some of it are things that have been on my mind, but I want to kind of leave you with 3 kind of basic life lessons so that you can walk away with and you can think about and then you can chew on. And the first one is, do not let your start determine your finish. Do not let your start determine your finish. Now, a little bit about me. So I grew up really poor. And I say really poor, I mean American poor, right? Because there's different levels of poverty. But just to give you a sense of it, I grew up in number 7 of 8 children. I grew up in a 2-room house, had no foundation. Oftentimes we had more water outside than we had inside. We had a half bath that functioned as a full bath. My father had a 6th grade education. My mother had a 4th grade education. We grew up on a street that we had a legit crack house. We had a carjacking ring family. That's what they specialized in. We had prostitution. We had a little gambling house, gambling hustle. We had it all. And I say that not for you to say, woe is me, right? Because I had 2 parents that loved me. There were challenges growing up. I say that to say, don't let your start determine your finish, right? So when you think about, many of you in this room are dealing with issues. You're living in trauma. But it doesn't have to be determinative of your future. In fact, it can be fuel. And what do I mean by that? So many people that grow up in tough neighborhoods or in colorful neighborhoods, is what I like to say, they think that those experiences are a negative, right? That somehow they're inferior as a result. But I'm here to tell you, it can be, and it is, your superpower. Let me explain. Let me give you an example, a real example. I'm in the Manhattan DA's office. Your first year in the Manhattan DA's office, your requirement is that, aside from doing 150 cases, right? Your requirement is that you have to do 1 year of domestic violence. You have to do domestic violence-related cases. Because you work for the city, you don't get your own office, so you share an office with colleagues. So here I am, John Jay grad, Rutgers Law School grad. I'm sitting in the room with a young woman who graduated Columbia and a young man who graduated Harvard. They're interviewing a domestic violence victim. They're going through the questions, everything is moving along, and I'm sitting there listening, and my exact thought, and we're all adults in this room, is like, this is complete bullshit, right? This is what I'm hearing. It's nonsense. Interview concluded, witness leaves, and they turn to me, they said, what do you think of this witness? And I said, are you kidding me? I said, she's running game. Huh? What? What are you talking about? I said, okay, let me put it into language that you understand. Like, so that skill is not called detecting running game. It's called what? It's called assessing the veracity of a witness, right? Many of you live in and are from homes where multiple languages are spoken. And you often think that your accent is somehow a handicap. I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's part of your superpowers, right? Think about it. Because what does speaking another language mean? What does it mean? It means you're bilingual. The accent means that you're bilingual. That means you understand, speak, read another language other than English. So the very person that you think the reason why you're inferior probably doesn't have the skill set that you have. These are all things that you learn growing up in neighborhoods. We talked about relationships, right? How many times do you have to negotiate your way through a neighborhood when you live in a real neighborhood? These are all small things, but if you use them wisely, they're your superpowers. So I want everyone here to realize something, that all of you are pregnant with the prospect of greatness. Pregnant with the prospect of greatness. Each and every one of you. And it's what you do with it, what you do for it, right? It's going to the road is going to be up and down. There's going to be peaks and valleys. There's going to be bumps and speed bumps and bypasses and all of that, and accidents, all of that. But you're better off for it once you're through it, if you stay the course. So please, do not let the trauma of your present dictate the glory of your tomorrow. Don't do it. Don't do it. And it's all here. And by the way, once you've quote unquote made it and you've created some modicum of success for yourself, don't lose who you are, right? I'm from the dirt, and I'm still here, and that's who I am. I take it in any boardroom and any courtroom I enter. That's who I am. So, and when I think about that, I think about the great Fannie Lou Hamer. Now, many of you in this room may not know who Fannie Lou Hamer is. If you don't, shame on you. You need to ask Dr. Google. But Fannie Lou Hamer was one of our greatest civil rights leaders, a powerful, amazing woman. And she often talked about bridges and crossing bridges. And she said, never forget the bridges that you cross. And in fact, she said, praise them. Praise them. And so that's what I want to leave you with. I want to make sure that it's really, really important to not let your current situation determine your finish. Don't let your start determine your finish. Second point. The world is bigger than your block. The world is bigger than the block that you're growing up on. And let me give you an example or an illustration. So I explained that both of my parents, 4th grade education, 6th grade education, they both came from the segregated South. So which means as a young person growing up, my summer vacations were where? They were either in Virginia or Georgia, right? We'd pack all the kids in a car and you go south. And so this one particular summer, I remember my father had my grandfather's old beat-up pickup truck. And he took me and my younger brother for a ride. And we're riding through Georgia. And he starts to talk about our last name, Green, that comes from, it's a slave name, it comes from a slave owners, and it comes from an area in Georgia called Greene County, Georgia. And so he drives to Greene County, Georgia, and he's starting to point out all of these plantations and said, this is likely where your name derived from, our name derived from. And I said, my father was 6'4", 250, so I said it very gingerly. I said, Dad, you're not upset by this? And he goes, you expect me to be mad? You expect me to be angry? Because I was feeling a certain kind of way, right? And so he pulls the truck over, and I'll never forget this. And he only said these words. He said, boy, the world is bigger than Greene County, Georgia. So think about that. Think about that phrase. And for me, hearing that, I was 14 years old. And for me, it culminated to everything that I am right now. Right now, right? I've traveled to 8 different continents, 30 countries, all 50 states, all because, number one, I was ready, right? I was open, and I said yes. And I'll explain. So, President Mason talked about me working in Africa and all these different projects on the continent. But let me tell you how it started. At Pfizer, we get cases. We're lawyers. Case comes in the door, and guess where the case is? Nigeria. All right, we got some Nigerians here. Well, okay, you're from Nigeria, my Nigerian brothers and sisters. You may be able to answer this question. Is Nigeria a vacation destination?
Yes, it is.
For non-Nigerians?
No.
Exactly. Always have to ask the follow-up, right? And that's the point. So nobody wanted to do this case in Nigeria, right? So case in Italy, sign me up, right? Case in Paris, sign me up. Spain, I'm on board. Nigeria, crickets. Absolute crickets. And I did this. And so as I'm doing this case, and it didn't stop there, as I'm doing this case in Nigeria, building relationships, I'm meeting various leaders in the government, right? I'm meeting the Attorney General for the country, right? I'm in rooms with the Supreme Court Justice for the country, the Chief Justice for the country. And I'm thinking, and I remember that we have this AGA program that's been around for a long time. We participate. They do some work in Mexico, and they do work across the US. And I started to think, well, why not Africa? Why not Africa? So I talked to my Nigerian colleague who's a lawyer both in Nigeria and New York. I told him, you know, we need to do some of this work on the continent. He goes, I think it could work. I go to the executive director, and she says to me, look, I like the idea. If you can come up with some seed money, it's always money, you gotta have funding, right? If you come up with some funding, we can do something. I go to my boss, I lay out the business case for the program. I lay out the business case for the program. And the business case is, and I'll be very brief with regard to this. State attorneys generals are the individuals that sue corporations from a government perspective, right? They control consumer protection, and so the relationships with them matter. And we need opportunities to build those relationships. And so I pitched this program as an opportunity to cross state AGs with AGs on the continent to build those relationships. And he said, just do it. That was 7 years ago. We started with one country, Nigeria. We're in 12 different countries as a result on the continent. So my point is to think globally. Think globally. I'm here, and you see what I'm wearing, right? I am dripping in West Africa. I got Ghana, I got Cross River State, Nigeria, and and it's all because I was ready, right? You have to do the work. You have to study your lesson, make sure that you're ready for the opportunity when it comes, right? Be open to the opportunity. Don't be closed off because it's not the path that you originally set for yourself, and then say yes. Those are really, really, really important things to think about because the opportunities will come, right? And think about how you can use your creativity. I could have easily either passed on the Nigeria case like my other colleagues. I could have, once I've taken the Nigeria case, I could have just did the case. and have gone home. But think about how you can leave your mark on anything that you do. So when you guys are walking into a room, you're walking into a room, for John Jay, representing John Jay. My walk is a jaywalk, and your walk is a jaywalk, right? I am you, and you are me. The last thing I'll say on this topic is one other thing. Aside from being completely dressed immersed in West African gear, as a result of me saying yes, on December 22nd of 2022, I was sworn in as a Ghanaian citizen. Relationships, a conversation. Here I am at the State House in Ghana. We're doing all of these programs in Ghana. I have an opportunity to meet the vice president, have an opportunity, more importantly, to meet the director of diaspora affairs. And we had a conversation. We had a conversation about ancestry. We had a conversation about claiming our culture and claiming our continent, right? Because I don't subscribe to the notion of African American. This is how the conversation started. She's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm an African living in America. Did you hear me? I said, I'm an African living in America. This notion of African American is a farce. Where else are you from if you're black other than the continent of Africa? Right? If you're born in France, right, and you're Nigerian, are you a Frenchman? No, you're an African living in France. So there's no difference. And so this started a long conversation, and she came to me and said, the work that you're doing here, you're committed to, do you have any interest in becoming a citizen? And I said, that took 2 years, and it culminated in a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. And I'm continuing to do work in Ghana. And yes, I'm still an American citizen. I have dual citizenship. And so think about, right? Think about being ready, right? Being open and saying yes. The last, number 3. Now, I didn't come up with this. I borrowed it from my good friend, Michael C. Turpin, who's a former Attorney General of Oklahoma and a wonderful human being, just a wonderful human. And he always says something to me. He says that all of us need all of us. All of us needs all of us. And so I just came back, literally yesterday. I flew from Israel to New York. And I went on an amazing journey. So this was one of these state visits. We had about 12 attorneys general. And we went on a visit. We went to Poland, and we went to Israel. And when we were in Poland, we visited Auschwitz. Now, I'm hoping that all of you here knows and understands what Auschwitz is and what it means. But to go there, to go to the place from 1941 to 1945 during the World War II, where the Nazis slaughtered over 6 million Jews, to see the ovens where bodies were burned, to see the gas chambers, to feel the pain and the anguish that was in that place was extremely, extremely important. We talk about diversity, right? We talk about the notion of diversity. But before we get to diversity, and this is an extremely important point, before we get to talking about the differences that we all have, there has to be a common understanding and appreciation for our shared humanity. It's extremely important, because if you do one without the other, what happens? It allows individuals to weaponize these differences. It allows individuals to take differences in culture, in religion, in political differences, sexual orientation. It allows them to weaponize those things. But if you start from a base that we are each other, you block a lot of this stuff out, right? If you start from a base that we're in this together, you block a lot of this stuff out. And it's a subtle point, but it's an important point. We need a global empathy initiative in this world. We need it. We need it. Because when we have tragedies like Auschwitz and the Holocaust, and then to have idiots who will proclaim that it didn't happen, right? The same idiots that will tell you that somehow black people had benefited from the slave trade. It's all because they don't see the humanity in someone else, right? There is when I was in Auschwitz in Poland, I came across a poem that many of you probably have heard before by a guy by the name of Martin Niemöller. And it goes something like this. It's called First They Came. First they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I'm not a communist, right? Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out. Why? Because I'm not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I'm not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I'm not a Jew. Then they came for me. And guess what? There was no one left to speak out for me. All of us needs all of us. That's the point. That's the point. We all know, I talked a little bit about the slave trade. Similar feelings. I had the occasion of going to Cape Coast in Ghana, a journey that I would employ anyone who has the opportunity to go to do. You can go to Cape Coast in Ghana, or you can go to Gorée Island in Senegal, same effect. There's an area where they had what they call slave castles. I call them slave dungeons because that's what they were. This is where they gathered and hoarded millions of Africans to transport them on the transatlantic slave trade. A place where individuals were beaten, held, just brutal. I remember standing in a room and hearing I was with the Attorney General of New York, Darcell's good friend, Tish James, and the former Attorney General of DC, Carl Racine. And we're standing in one of these holding areas. And I remember the guide who was giving the tour telling us about this is where they kept the unruly slaves. Unruly meaning the slaves that didn't go quietly. And then he pointed to the floor, and you can see this black, thick substance, and he was clear that that substance was not just dirt, that substance was blood, it was skin, it was urine, it was bone. And then he said, above this structure was a church. The tears I cried on that day were the same tears I shed in Auschwitz. We are one people. And it's understanding that connectivity of humanity that makes a difference. I think about 1994, 100 days in 1994 in Rwanda, right? The Hutu and the Tutsis slaughtering each other, killing each other, 800,000 dead, men, women, and children. And guess what? The world stood by and did nothing. Why? Because they weren't Hutsi and they weren't Tutsi. It wasn't them. This cannot happen. And so what I challenge you to do, and whatever your jobs are, whoever you're dealing with, whether it's victims, whether it's defendants, I was a prosecutor. I was never disrespectful to a defendant. Aside from the fact that I lived uptown and I know I would run into one of these guys in a chicken line, right? I'm not stupid. But more to the point, these are people. These are people that went left, right. They made all sorts of decisions, and they have circumstances that impacted their lives. Doesn't mean that you don't do your job. That doesn't mean that someone who raped a little girl, you don't knock them in the head twice and take them out of society. It doesn't mean that. But it means that you address them with courtesy and respect and with dignity. Why? Because you're recognizing the humanity in each other. We have to do this. And it starts with all of you, right? You guys are the key. You guys are on the front line. You know, at some point, you know, our batteries are going to run out, you know? And you guys are going to be on the front lines. And how you engage, how you set the tone in the relationships, how you deal with each other ultimately matters. Ultimately matters. And so I'm gonna sit down because, as I said, I'm a lawyer, I'm the son of a preacher, you give me a microphone, and we can be here a while. But I really want you to remember the three things, right? Don't allow your start to dictate your finish. The world is bigger than your block. And all of us need all of us. I'm Marcus Green. And remember from my father, the world is bigger than Greene County, Georgia. Thank you.
So we have something in common. I'm the granddaughter of a Baptist minister from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And you're right. You just go there to be ready to stay. And I used to do bond financing in Greene County, Georgia. So I know Greene County. Okay. And tell your father he was right. The world changed. They had a black woman making sure the schools in Greene County were good. Fantastic. Because of his work. So you are a wonderful, fierce advocate for justice across the world. But your home is here at John Jay, and we don't want you to ever forget that. So we are giving you this Fierce Advocate for Justice Award.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right, so she wants to get a picture. Okay.